Have you ever been lying in bed, completely exhausted, and suddenly felt the need to pray? But then a thought interrupts you. Does this even count? Should I sit up? Is God really listening right now? If you've ever felt that quiet guilt, you're not alone. Today, we're not guessing, we're not following tradition, and we're not letting fear decide theology. We're going to look at what the Bible actually teaches about prayer posture and why God's attention may be closer than you've been led to believe. Before we talk about how you pray, we need to understand why this question creates guilt in the first place, why this question even exists. Most believers were never taught that praying lying down is wrong, but many feel like it is. Why? Because somewhere along the way, reverence got confused with position, and discipline got confused with distance. We were shown images of prayer, kneeling, hands folded, eyes closed, and without realizing it, we turned those images into rules. But the Bible doesn't begin prayer by describing posture. It begins by revealing relationship. Prayer was never meant to be a performance. It was meant to be a connection. And when connection becomes performance, people stop praying freely and start praying carefully, measuring themselves instead of meeting with God. And once you see how Scripture actually presents prayer, the guilt you've been carrying quietly starts to loosen. What the Bible actually shows us about prayer posture. Let's be clear. The Bible includes many prayer postures: standing, kneeling, sitting, face down, with hands raised, in silence, out loud, in public, and completely alone. There is no single correct physical position commanded for prayer. What Scripture emphasizes instead is the posture of the heart. God consistently responds not to how the body is placed, but to how the heart is oriented. This is why someone can be standing tall and still be far from God, while another lies flat in weakness and is closer than they've ever been. And one of the most powerful examples of this comes from a moment when someone wasn't standing, kneeling, or even awake for long. David, the Psalms, and prayers from the bed. David, a man described as after God's own heart, wrote several prayers that came from moments of weakness, exhaustion, and vulnerability. Psalm 4:8 says, "In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety." That verse isn't a prayer after strength returns. It's a prayer spoken before rest. Psalm 63:6 says, "On my bed I remember you. I think of you through the watches of the night." David wasn't worried about posture. He was focused on presence. Notice what David trusted here. Not his alertness, not his form, but the nearness of God, even when consciousness was slipping into sleep. If lying down automatically disqualified prayer, these moments wouldn't exist in Scripture at all. Jesus and the absence of posture rules. Now let's look at Jesus. When Jesus taught his disciples how to pray, he didn't begin with instructions for the body. He said, "When you pray, say, not stand this way, not kneel like this, not make sure you're alert enough, just pray." Jesus prayed standing. Jesus prayed alone. Jesus prayed before meals. Jesus prayed in agony, overwhelmed with sorrow. And Scripture never once suggests that the effectiveness of his prayers was connected to physical position. If posture were the key, Jesus would have said so. But instead, he spoke about faith, persistence, humility, and trust. So if posture isn't the issue, why do so many sincere believers still feel uneasy praying in bed? The real issue, intention versus disengagement. Here's where clarity matters. There is a difference between praying while lying down and using prayer as an afterthought before sleep. Not because God refuses one, but because intention shapes attention. If lying down helps you be honest, calm, and present with God, that prayer is not weaker. But if prayer becomes rushed,
distracted, or careless, not because of posture, but because of habit, then the issue isn't the bed, it's awareness. God is not offended by rest, but He does invite presence, and presence can happen standing or lying down when the heart is engaged. And this is where guilt often enters, not from God, but from misunderstanding what God is actually listening for. Scripture repeatedly shows what God responds to, not posture, but humility, sincerity, trust, dependence, faith. Psalm 51:17 says, "A broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise." Notice what's missing. There's no mention of where the body is positioned. God listens for hearts that are turned toward Him, even if the body is tired, weak, or lying down. And for many people, it's exhaustion that finally removes pretense and leaves only honesty, the very thing God desires. And this truth becomes especially important when exhaustion enters the picture, when weakness makes lying down the only option. There are seasons when illness limits strength. Grief drains energy, anxiety overwhelms the mind, and exhaustion silences words. In those moments, lying down isn't laziness, it's honesty. And God is not offended by human limitation. He entered it. Romans 8 reminds us, the Spirit helps us in our weakness, not after strength returns, in weakness itself. So the question shifts, not, does God hear me? But, why did I think He wouldn't? Where the guilt actually comes from. Much of the guilt surrounding prayer posture comes from comparing ourselves to idealized versions of devotion. But comparison was never meant to guide prayer. God doesn't ask you to approach Him as someone else. He invites you as you are. If lying down allows you to be sincere instead of performative, then that posture is not disrespectful. It's real. And once this sinks in, prayer becomes less about effort and more about relationship. A balanced biblical perspective. Let's be balanced. If you're able to sit, kneel, or stand, and those positions help you focus, use them. But never confuse discipline with distance. God is not closer when you kneel and farther when you lie down. He is near to the humble, not the positioned. Closeness to God is measured by surrender, not by spinal alignment. And this leads us to the most freeing truth of all, the God who meets you where you are. Prayer was never about earning attention. It's about responding to invitation. God doesn't wait for perfect posture. He welcomes honest presence. Whether you're standing strong or lying down exhausted, He hears. Not because you got it right, but because He is faithful. So the next time you're lying in bed and feel the urge to pray, don't hesitate. Don't overthink. Don't measure posture. Just speak. Because here's the reason this matters. God listens to hearts, not angles. If this brought clarity or peace, subscribe to With Reasons and turn on notifications. And tell me in the comments, have you ever felt unsure about how you should pray? Because here, every message has a reason, and every reason leads back to Him.